The year was 1871, when the town of Hollow Creek first appeared on maps of western Pennsylvania. The locals swore the place had been there long before the surveyors came. It sat in a valley shrouded by mist and surrounded by rolling forests that caught the morning light like fire through glass. The creek itself wound through the heart of town, its waters dark and restless, whispering against stones smoothed by centuries. When Elias Whitaker first arrived, the road had been nothing more than packed earth and horse tracks. He was a young journalist from Philadelphia, his boots caked with mud and his eyes bright with the hunger of discovery. The Civil War had ended 6 years ago, but its ghosts lingered in every town and tavern, Hollow Creek no exception. Elias had come following a rumor. A letter had reached the offices of the Philadelphia Daily Chronicle, unsigned, written in an elegant but trembling hand. Greater than, there are graves here that were never marked. There are names here that never died. Come, if you seek the truth of the war. But do not ask the river for answers, for it remembers. The editor dismissed it as the ramblings of a drunk, but Elias, young, curious, desperate to make his name, begged to take the assignment. Within a week, he was on a train bound west. He arrived at dusk. The town looked ordinary at first glance: a general store, a blacksmith's forge, a church with a white spire rising above the pines. But the silence struck him. Even the horses moved quietly, their hooves muffled as if the very earth wished not to be disturbed. At the inn, the old keeper, Mrs. Bramley, greeted him with a knowing look. "You're here for the letters," she said before he even spoke. Elias froze. "You've heard of them?" he asked. Her wrinkled face stiffened. "Everyone here has heard of them, son. But no one talks about them after dark." That night, as the wind rattled the shutters, Elias could not sleep. From somewhere near the creek, he thought he heard the sound of a hymn, faint, haunting, sung by voices that rose and fell like the current itself. The next morning, Elias began his inquiries. He met the townsfolk, miners, widows, veterans. Every one of them seemed wary, as if afraid of saying too much. But slowly, over days, he gathered fragments of a story that had nearly vanished. During the last winter of the Civil War, a Union field hospital had been stationed near Hollow Creek. The war was drawing to a bloody close, and soldiers, wounded, disfigured, dying, had flooded the valley. Locals opened their barns and homes. A small makeshift cemetery was dug behind the church. But when the war ended and the doctors left, something strange happened. Bodies went missing, graves were found empty, and letters, dozens of them, began arriving in the town from soldiers presumed dead. Letters that bore no return address, but were unmistakably in the handwriting of the lost. Each letter spoke of the Hollow Men, a name no one could explain. They claimed to have found a sanctuary by the river, where death could not follow. The town grew fearful. Some burned the letters, others left offerings by the creek. And slowly, as the years passed, Hollow Creek closed itself to outsiders. Elias was certain now, there was a story here, one that could change everything. He sought out the church records, the old burial logs, anything that could confirm the truth. That's when he met Reverend Josiah Gray. The Reverend was a gaunt man with eyes the color of ash and a voice that never seemed to rise above a whisper. His church stood on a hill overlooking the creek, its wooden cross weathered and splintered, yet still standing tall. When Elias approached, the old man was sweeping the porch. He paused, leaning on his broom. "You're the reporter," he said simply. "I knew you'd come." "How could you know that?" Elias asked. Reverend Gray smiled faintly. "Because every 20 years, someone like you does." He invited Elias inside. The air smelled of old books and candle wax. On the desk lay a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. "I've written down everything," the Reverend said. "But you won't print it." "No one ever does." He opened the book. The first page read, January 14, 1865, the first night of the Hollow. Elias listened as the old man spoke, a story that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The Reverend had been a young chaplain then, newly assigned to the field hospital near Hollow Creek. The winter was brutal, snow buried tents, food was scarce, and disease killed faster than bullets. One night, a surgeon named Nathaniel Cray came running to his quarters. "Reverend," he cried, "you must see this." In the makeshift morgue, a soldier, Private Alton Price, had been declared dead 2 days earlier. Yet now he sat upright, eyes open, whispering scripture. They thought it a miracle. But when the Reverend knelt beside him, He saw that the man's lips were blue, his breath cold as frost. Private Price looked at him and whispered, "Greater than, the river doesn't let go." By morning, the soldier was gone, vanished, leaving only his tag and a damp trail leading to the creek. More followed. Every night, bodies disappeared. Those who went searching heard the sound of men singing old war hymns deep within the fog. None dared go near the water again. When spring came, the hospital burned to the ground. Official reports said it was an accident. But the Reverend knew better. "Greater than, we buried what we could," he said, voice trembling. But not everything that walks belongs to the living. Elias, though shaken, was determined to find evidence. He searched the ruins of the old field hospital, now overgrown with vines and moss. There, in a rusted trunk, he found a soldier's diary, half burnt, the ink faded but legible. It belonged to Corporal Samuel Deacon. The entries began normally, accounts of battles, hunger, cold. But near the end, the tone changed. "Greater than, drive. Cray says the river heals. He says it remembers the blood we shed and calls us home. Last night, I saw Price standing in the water. He smiled. He was not himself anymore." Then, the final entry. "Greater than, tomorrow, I go to him. If I do not return, tell my mother that I am free. Tell her the river has forgiven us." Elias copied every word, but as he read, he noticed something else, the date of the last entry, March 3, 1865. The next page, written in different ink, was dated March 3, 1885, exactly 20 years later. The handwriting was identical. Elias began to doubt everything he knew. Had the town been cursed? Was it all madness, or something older, something that predated even the war? That night, he walked to the creek under a full moon. The water shimmered like mercury. As he stood on the bank, he saw movement, shapes in the fog, like men standing waist-deep in the current. Then came the singing again, faint but unmistakable. A hymn of the battlefield. "Greater than, lay me down in the cold, cold ground." Elias called out, "Who's there?" The figures turned, and for a moment, he saw their faces. Pale, familiar. He had seen them before, in the faded photographs in the church, in the graves behind it. And among them stood a man in a surgeon's coat, drive. Nathaniel Cray. "Greater than, you found us," the doctor said softly. "But you were not supposed to." Elias stumbled backward. "You're dead," he whispered. The doctor smiled. "The river does not keep the dead. It keeps its promises." The current rose. The song swelled. And Elias remembered the Reverend's words. "Greater than, every 20 years, someone like you comes, and someone like you stays." He turned to run, but the fog closed in. When morning came, Mrs. Bramley found Elias's notebook on her porch. His room was empty. His boots still by the door. The sheriff searched the town, the woods, the creek. Nothing. Only the faint echo of a hymn that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The newspaper in Philadelphia never received his report. The Chronicle published a small note. "Greater than, journalist Elias Whitaker, missing in the Hollow Creek region. Presumed drowned." But Reverend Gray, in his final sermon before his death, said otherwise. "Greater than, he saw what I saw," he told the congregation. And the river saw him, too. In 1971, a team of historians from Pittsburgh University visited Hollow Creek. They found the ruins of an old church, the foundations of the hospital, and dozens of unmarked graves. But they also found something stranger. Buried deep in the riverbank was a metal box, sealed, untouched by rust. Inside lay a journal. The first page read, "Greater than, Elias Whitaker, 1871. If you find this, know that the Hollow remembers." The handwriting matched both the 1865 and 1885 entries. The last page bore no date. Only one line, written in trembling script. "Greater than, we are not dead. We are waiting. Epilogue. The Chronicle lives on. Today, Hollow Creek is no longer found on any map. The forests reclaimed it. The river changed course. But locals still say that on foggy nights, if you stand by the banks of the Allegheny, you can hear the hymn, the same one sung by soldiers who never truly left. Some say it's the wind. Others say it's the river remembering. But those who have read the old letters know the truth. There are places where history does not end, only hides. And Hollow Creek is one of them.